Assalamualaikum, salam bahagia, salam mekar di hati. I bid to our beloved lecturer, Dr. Kamarudin, and all my lovely friends. I am DENISE ALISSA MONTEIRO binti Hairul Rashid, and I am from Unit TSL B2. So for my Philosophy and Education in Malaysia course presentation, I will be talk about theories and curriculum construction models. So in this theories and curriculum construction model topic, we will be going to talk about the introduction to this topic, the objective model, the process model, and lastly, the principles of Islamic and Eastern Studies or their curriculum. Let's move on to the introduction slides. So for the introduction to this topic, it is referred as a guidance used to write the curriculum sector or the documents that used in the educational sector, which is used to determine the specific aspect of teaching, such as the objective, the learning outcomes, or how they are going to conduct lessons in classroom. So for curriculum development, can be defined as a step-by-step process that used to create positive improvement in courses that offered by school, college, and university. So there are many factors that become the starting point for the creation of this curriculum formation model or curriculum construction model, which are students have learning deficiencies. So they need to be treated as early as they can by the lessons that conduct in schools, so that the elements of competence or skills that need to be mastered could be learned by then, and the development of socialization involving the social attitudes, values, and skills could be mastered in school or in classroom itself. Let's move on to the first model, which is objective model that presents by Tyler and Taba Model as the example. So this model is results oriented, where every grades are the prime realistic objective, with the focus lying more on the finished product rather than on the learning process itself. So they more focus on the outcome of the learning instead of how they conduct the learning itself. So the subjects have been determined at the first place from the teachers or the authorities, and subject-student problems are oriented in the classroom. So theories involved in this objective model are Tyler, Bloom, Meagher, Gagne, Wheeler, Kerr, and Cretewell. So why do we use this objective model? Because there are a lot of benefits actually. Firstly, the student and teacher could avoid the blur or non-precise statements, such as the subject already been determined way before the students get into the classroom. So the assessment are more accurate because it's based on the grades by the examination that conduct in the classroom, and it could assist teacher and students to develop much more skills that needed in certain subjects, such as the communication skill or the teamwork skills that needed to do in certain subjects. And beside that, it could help a student or teacher to choose and construct better contents in the classroom. And the teachers will be more aware on the numerous methods in delivering lessons for certain subjects instead of just delivering the knowledge blindly in classroom, where the teachers will be more elaborate the skills and show the correct skills for the students so that they could master it as long as the lessons being conducted in the classroom. So with all the benefits, it must have their own consequences, which this objective model is too focused on the psychological and behaviorism, which it only seems to focus on result-oriented or the subject problem students-oriented only. And it also too stress on subjects and certain assessments, which like I said just now, the grades are very matter in this model. And the third one is it is too complicated and unnecessary for the lower grades, because the lower grades actually needs to be focused on the knowledge instead, but in this model they need to be mastered in such skills which not suitable with their age. And the fourth is the student will have to decide over behaviorism objective in higher educational levels, because in higher educational levels the knowledge and the skills is much more important than the behaviorism skills or behaviorism sector. And lastly, it is not suitable to effective domain in the students itself. By the way, this model also have emphasized in the formation of the curriculum based on following elements, which is the structured learning environment, teacher coordinates students, materials and learning facilities, scientific principles are applied, involve careful monitoring, teachers and also have guidelines for conducting the development of students in their learning experiences. So these are the objective or actually the elements that needed in this objective model. The first model that applied this objective model is Taylor model in 1949. There are 4 steps actually used in this model. First of all, this model is developed by Ralph Taylor in the 1940s. So the first step is including determine the school's objective first, and then identify educational experience in the students, organize the experience, which is the learning experience that the student need to be master or need to be have after they graduate. And then the last one is evaluate the purposes, which is be done by the assessments or the examinations. Meanwhile, for the second model that applied the objective model, which is the Taba Model 1962, the Taba model was developed by Hilda Taba during 1902 until 1967. He was an architect, a curriculum theorist, a curriculum reformer, and a teacher educator itself. And this model is used to enhance the thinking skills in the students, because like we already know, the objective model is mainly focused on developing skills like the thinking skills in students. The teacher who should design the curriculum rather than the higher authorities, which the teachers is the one who in charge to conduct or design the lesson plan that they need to conduct in classroom instead of other non-related higher authorities. And the last one is the main concept of this approach to curriculum development is that teachers must be involved actively in the development of the students and the curriculum that they will going through. The Taba model have their own strengths and limitations. The strengths are like gifted students begin to think of a concept and dive deeper into that concept. And this Taba model also focus on open-ended question, which enhance the thinking skills in the students to think of the problem solving themselves. And the third one is the open-endedness require more abstract thinking, a benefit to our gifted students. And the last one is the questions and answers lend themselves to rich classroom discussion. But the limitation for this model is it can be difficult for non-gifted students, like the average students or the behind students, to actually come up with the thinking skills and ability to problem solving skills. And it is difficult for heterogeneous classroom. It works well for fiction and non-fiction, but it may be difficult to easily use in all subjects. So let's move on to the process model, the second model in this curriculum construction model. So the process model is more open-ended, more focused on how learning develops over a period of time. And this model also made the students are more likely to define their own learning activities instead of the teacher, with less teacher involvement in the classroom. This model is mainly student-centered, problem-centered design, and post-positivism. And the basics of this model are reflective and counseling modes, which the teachers act as a facilitator instead of delivering knowledge by themselves. So the elements that make up in this process model are competency, assessment, need analysis, and implementation of the experience. So the skills needed in this particular model is such as observations, verbal and non-verbal communication skills, and cognitive skills, because the students needs to conduct the learning themselves with a little bit guidance from the lecturer or the teachers in the classroom, where they need to build a solving skills. They need to solve any problem that they got in the classroom by themselves. Like how the objective model have their own pros and cons, obviously this process model also have their own advantage and disadvantage. So the first advantages that this process model have is they could emphasize is given to the role of teachers and the role of active learning, where the students are more collaborative and active in the group discussion instead of the teachers being the one who talk in the classroom. The second one is it could develop their study skills, which they will dive deeper in the concept of their subjects. And third, students learn how to maintain in daily life because they got the problem solving skills. And lastly, the teachers act as a facilitator and facilitate the way students acquire knowledge, where they only guide the students, but the students need to do it self. And for the disadvantage, this process model might overlook in certain knowledge because not all the knowledge needs the problem solving skills. And the second one is it difficult to apply in some areas of knowledge. And lastly, the issues in evidence regarding competence, because the student might have lack of knowledge, but they got the skills higher than the knowledge that they have in the lesson plan. So the model that applied this process model is Stenhouse model in 1975. It is founded by Lawrence Stenhouse, and he believed that what happened in classroom and then the individual evaluate their studies. So the Stenhouse model is focused on the interaction between the students, teachers, and the knowledge itself. So in class, teacher must facilitate the students to have critical thinking ability. The teacher must carry out interactive lessons, and the teacher must be the facilitator instead of delivering the knowledge blindly. In this Stenhouse model, there are some learning strategies that apply in this model, such as the group work and cooperative tasks, discussion on problem-solving tasks, simulation technique, learn and play technique, project work, and visit method. All these strategies are used to encourage the students to build their own skills and being more competent in collaborative in the group discussions. And then the assessment methods that used in this Stenhouse model are monitoring, observation, interaction, analyze, and report, where the teacher will analyze and monitor how the student's ability to conduct all the learning strategies that I listed just now and evaluate them by the ability that the students shows. So the Stenhouse model also has the strengths and weaknesses. So the strengths, firstly, is they focus on the interaction between teachers and students. There are various types of teaching and learning methods, like the learning strategies just now. And lastly, it could encourage students to be more active and cooperative in classroom. While the weaknesses are like less focus on the knowledge in learning outcomes, not suitable in every subject, and students will be more too dependent on teachers and confused as there are no concrete guidance because the teachers are only facilitate. So let's move on to the analysis of objective models based on its theory. So the theory used in objective models is theory of behaviorism, which is the learning can be provide changes in student behavior, and this theory is founded by Ivan Pavlov that also supported by B.F. Skinner and Thorndike. The learning is something that measurable is their epistemological point of view in this objective model. And then the analysis of process models based on its theory. There are two theories actually. The first theory is humanist theory, which they believe learning is seen as a whole of experience, and this theory is pioneered by John Dewey, Alexander Stirling, Neil, Carl Rogers, and Abraham Maslow. And their epistemological point of view is individuals' desire is to obtain information without any limitations. And the second theory is information processing theory. It is derived from cognitive theory and emphasizes on the principles of constructivism. This theory is pioneered by Kurt Lewin, Jean Piaget, Jerome Bruner, and David Ausubel. Their point of view in epistemological area is the correlation of learning experiences is correlating or correlated with the student's cognitive or student's abilities in cognitive structures. Let's move on to the last part of my topic today, which is the principle of Islamic and Eastern curriculum. First of all, let me talk about the Islamic curriculum. The principle of Islamic curriculum is based on Wahyu or Al-Quran. The medium is Al-Quran and Arabic is the language they use in communicating with each other. The courses that needed in Islamic curriculum is such as social science and humanities, physical science, and Islamic studies. The education in Islam's perspective are such as the continuous process, which is they encourage the learning as a continuous process, and they also encourage humans' potential in intellectual, spiritual, morality, and physical. They will also balancing the world and the hereafter, which they will more focus on the good deeds and the knowledge that they need to be balanced with the world and hereafter, like the religions, knowledge, and so on. Principles that included in this Islamic studies are the main is focus on hygiene, purity, and honesty. In Islam, the hygiene, purity, and honesty is very important for the Islamic, for the Muslim to able to practice in their daily life. The second one is create students with good virtue and high morality. This is for the sake of to balance with the poor and the hereafter, where they need to have good deeds to get a better life in their hereafter. So the third one is build good spiritual in students' mind, so that the students will also focus on their religion instead of focus on the knowledge in this world. And the last one is normalize kindness and pure values. No matter how smart the students is, they should have the kindness or the good behavior to identify themselves as a good student. So in Islamic studies, there are these courses that consist in Islamic curriculum, which is Al-Hulukiyah, Al-Imaniyah, Al-Jismiyah, Al-Akiliyah, Al-Nafsiyah, Al-Ijlimiyah, and Al-Jinisiyah. These all courses is very important and will be conducted in class for the Islamic studies or Islamic curriculum. But meanwhile, on the other side, the principles of Eastern curriculum is also kind of similar, but there are some differences. In this Eastern curriculum, there are two categories, which is the Confucianism in China and Hinduism in India. They also emphasize the high morality, seek for happiness in afterlife, and believe that human can change it to better if they have the eagerness, where if they want to learn something, they could, if only if they have the eagerness to do it. So, in Confucianism, it is created by Confucius during 551 and 479 sebelum Masihi. The concept is to develop humans' behaviorism, and education is for all, which there are no limitations by who could get the education. So the aims for this Confucianism curriculum is that to produce high potential and morality in individual. So they must have the high productivity or high skills, but also needs to be a good individual by the kindness or pure values. So the teachers in this belief is also they must act as a facilitator and also knowledge presenter. This Confucianism believed that everyone was born with kindness and could only be built with extra education, where all the smart people will be more kind and will be develop their pure values more instead of having no education at all. So the focus in moral studies is there are steps, which the most important part is respect to the parent, Xiao, and the second is respect to the elders, T. The third is diligent, Min. The loyalty, Zhong. Thrifty, Jian. Tolerance, Rong. Intelligence, Zhi. And lastly, bravery, the Yong. So this stage is according to the importance that they need to focus in moral studies, where they put the respects to the parents for as the most important part in the studies, and the bravery also important, but it's the last stage for the studies. Meanwhile, for Hinduism, The founder is Rabindranath Tagore, and the principle also similar to the Confucianism, which they focus on knowledge and also focus on producing the pure values individual, the kind individuals. So in this Hinduism, they believe that education is a dynamic process and realistic to be occur in real life. And they also focus on both knowledge resource such as book and experiences. The education is a way to produce productive society so that the society will be devoted or will be useful to their country development. So I think that's all from my presentation. These are the reference that I use in making this presentation slides. Thank you and see you again.